Hi, I'm Danica Federi, and I'm going to be going over how to teach adjectives to children. I really like teaching adjectives because you could teach them just about anywhere. You can teach children adjectives in the therapy room, in the lobby, on your walk to the therapy room. You could teach them on a walk outside, and you could even teach them during mealtime. And I really like teaching adjectives because you could use as little or as many materials as you want. In this video, I'll be going over how to teach adjectives using the 5 senses and how to teach adjectives using books. So for the 5 senses, I really like using objects that the children can hold and that they could use their 5 senses to describe. So something that they can feel, things that they can smell, touch, things that they can hear, even taste. So for the first example, I'll be using a pumpkin. And for all the objects, for many objects, you can't really ask them questions about all 5 senses because, for example, like a pumpkin doesn't really have a sound. So that's why I like having multiple objects. For this first object, before handing it over to them, I can ask them, what does the pumpkin look like? They can say it's orange, the pumpkin is small, and I really like asking about different parts of the object. So I can say, what does the stem look like? They can say it looks tiny, it looks skinny, and then I would hand the pumpkin over to them and have them feel it and ask them, what does the pumpkin feel like? And they could tell me the pumpkin is smooth, they can tell me the pumpkin is soft, it's hard. If they can't think of anything, I usually like helping them by giving them 2 options. So I would say, well, does the pumpkin feel soft or does it feel hard? Does it feel smooth or does it feel rough? And then I would have them, a pumpkin sometimes it has a smell, so you can ask them to smell it and say, what does the pumpkin smell like? They might tell you it's sweet, they might tell you it smells rotten if it's rotting. The next object I have is a jar of sea glass. So for this I can ask them, what does it look like? And they can tell me, well, it looks colorful, it looks clear. Again, if they can't give me a word that describes it, I would give them options. Does it look colorful or does it look dull? Or does it look green or gray? So this is also a good time to teach colors too, even with the pumpkin. Like, well, if they can't tell me what it looks like, I would say, is it orange or is it white? With a sea glass, jar of sea glass, you can shake it, have them shake it if they wanted to, and you can say, what does it sound like? So that's another sense that you could use to describe and teach adjectives. They can say it sounds noisy, they can say it sounds quiet, they can say it sounds muffled, if it sounds like that. Yeah, the next one I'll be using is, so this is a cup of tea, it's warm. I wouldn't suggest using tea with kids just because they don't really drink tea and tea is usually hot. But for example, you can use a cup of orange juice. I just didn't have a cup of orange juice. So first you can start out asking them, what does it look like? They can tell you, well, it looks orange, or you can have them describe, instead of describing the juice, you could ask them, again, different parts. So what does the glass look like? They can say the glass looks full, or the glass looks empty, the glass looks clear, and then you can move on to what it feels like. And for using the sense of touch and what it feels like, you can either have them stick their finger in it, this would be warm, or you could even have them taste it. And when you have them take a sip, you can say, what does it feel like? They might say it feels cold, or it feels warm if it's at room temperature. And then with orange juice, you can use their sense of smell. So you can have them smell it and tell you, what does the orange juice smell like? They can say it smells sweet, it smells sour, whatever they think it smells like. And then you could have them tell you what it tastes like. So again, it can taste sweet, it could taste sour, depending on the orange juice. And with that, that's already 4 senses that you can use to describe one object. Here is a candle. So for the candle, I would say, before giving it to them, I would say, what does it look like? Again, you can take off the lid and ask them what the lid looks like and what this looks like. So the lid is a little skinny, it could be shiny, they could use shiny to describe it. The actual candle would be round. This is a little round too, but like this is, and they could even say bigger. So you could teach them how to use adjectives to compare to. So that one is bigger. You can have them touch it to ask them what it feels like. They might say it feels smooth. You can have them touch the different parts. So you can have them touch the wax. And like they might say the wax feels softer, it feels more smooth. You can have them touch the wick, and the wick might be a little more hard. It might be bendy. And then you could have them smell it. So you can ask them what it smells like, and they might say it smells sweet, or it smells good, or it stinks. It's stinky. And then even if you didn't have materials, you could just use any materials that you have in the therapy room. So for example, a pencil is something that's commonly found in a therapy room. So you could ask them, what does the pencil look like? Or you could start off more vague and say, give me a word that describes the pencil. And if they have a hard time, then you could get more specific and say, well, what color is the pencil? What does the pencil look like? What does it feel like? And if they can't tell you still, you can give them two options and say, like, is the pencil smooth or is it rough? Is it long or is it short? Just things like that. If you didn't have a pencil, you could even use words to describe what they're wearing. So you can say, what color is your shirt? Or give me one word that describes your shirt. What's one word that describes my shirt? And if they have a hard time, you could get more specific and say, well, what color is your shirt? So I like adjectives too because you can teach a lot of different things. Like you can teach colors, you can teach size, sounds, a bunch of things. So even like their hair, so you can ask them to feel their hair. What does their hair feel like? What does it look like? People have curly hair, some people have short hair, some people have black hair. So you could use just about anything. Next, I'll be going over how to use books to teach adjectives. So for this book, The Polar Bear Who Saved Christmas, I could start off by having them describe the physical appearance of the book. So what does the book look like? What do the letters look like? The letters are really shiny. What does the book feel like? It feels really smooth. It looks small. And then I would flip to a page, and I would start out reading and say, for example, one Christmas Eve in a den in the snow, a polar bear slept and didn't know that her cub was awake. Pip could not rest. He was excited for Christmas, the day he loved best. And then I would ask them, like, what's one thing that's on the page? And they could say, there's a polar bear. There's two polar bears. I could ask them how many polar bears there are, which is also a word to describe, so quantity. And if they say there's a polar bear, for example, I can say, what's one word that describes the polar bear? And if they can't give me a word, I would help them and give them a cue, or just be a little more specific and say, well, what color is the polar bear? Or is the polar bear big or small? How is the polar bear feeling? So you could even help teach emotions when using books. And I really like using books because you could work on a bunch of things at the same time. You could work on nouns, which is like the bear, verbs, sleeping, prepositions, the bear is wearing the scarf on his neck. And there's just so much in books that you kind of never run out of things. In this picture, for example, like there's a bunch of trees. I could ask them, like, what do the trees look like? What color are the trees? Are they big or are they small? Using books too, I like because you could ask them questions they really have to think about that are a little more abstract. For example, you can ask them, because there's snow in the picture, so you can say, give me one word that describes the snow, and they can say it's white. And you could ask them a question like, well, what do you think the snow feels like? So it's not something that they could tell you just by looking at the picture. They kind of have to think about it. And yeah. Another example, books have a lot. So like this picture has a lot going on, and you could describe just about anything. You could teach patterns. So like this book right here is striped, so you could teach stripes. There's polka dots on the curtains over here, so you could teach them like the words striped, spotted, which are descriptive words. You could ask, again, like emotions. You could teach quantity, so how many reindeer are there? There's 3 reindeer. And again, if they need help or they can't tell you, then I would just give them cues and like ask either more specific questions or give them choices. So you could say, are the reindeer brown or black? Or if you wanted to make it harder, are they brown, black, or white? And they're usually able to tell you. I also like using books to help identify adjectives instead of just naming adjectives. So for example, I would read a sentence. Let me find a good one. So for example, on this page it says, there were warm, cozy houses and elves everywhere. I would ask them, is the word warm a noun, an adjective, or a verb? And see if they could identify it that way. Another thing I would do is I would read the sentence, there were warm, cozy houses and elves everywhere. And I would ask them, what's one word in that sentence that describes things? Or give me one adjective in that sentence, and see if they could do that. So not only does it help them name adjectives, but also identify adjectives in the sentence, and at the same time you could work on other parts of speech. So that's why I like using books for teaching adjectives and using their 5 senses, and I hope this helps.